Elara Ashworth didn't need to see the screen to know Julian was lying. It was the smile that did it, a soft, private curve of his mouth reserved only for her, now aimed at his phone across the kitchen island. For 3 years since the studio fire, she tolerated his secrecy, the hushed late-night calls, the encrypted laptop, the unexplained blueprints scattered across his new, makeshift workshop. But this smile, so familiar yet so wrongly directed, felt like the final betrayal. Her heart hammered as she crept around the counter. She was prepared for the name of a lover or a secret second life. Instead, the glowing display showed a contact labeled simply the foundation, and the message was a single, cryptic sequence of coordinates and a date, a temporal failure point. The sickening realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her husband, the quiet sculptor who claimed to be starting over, wasn't having an affair. He was at the center of the very conspiracy that had ripped their daughter from their timeline and destroyed their world. Julian Thorne was living a lie, and Elara had just discovered the terrifying identity of his new, secret partner. Before diving into the gripping details of this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories. The silence in their century-old house wasn't peaceful, it was hollow. It resonated with the memory of better times, the echo of a tiny, forgotten laugh. It had been 7 months since the catastrophic fire took their magnificent workshop and, with it, the last vestiges of Elara's joy. Julian had changed. He was remote, his eyes always scanning some distant, internal horizon, and his communication was solely focused on the sleek rectangle in his hand. The phone had become a permanent, glowing barrier between them. Elara knew the signs of infidelity weren't always lipstick and perfume. Sometimes, they were just silence and a smile reserved for someone else, a smile of profound connection she felt entirely excluded from. She was haunted by the fact that the only lightness left in Julian seemed to be channeled through that encrypted glass. For weeks, she'd watched Julian on the sofa, bathed in the cool, telltale blue glow of his screen. He didn't text during the day when she was near, but every night, between midnight and 3 a.m., the phone would come out, his head slightly tilted, his shoulders releasing tension she didn't even realize he was carrying. That posture, the relaxed shoulders, the genuine, unguarded smile, was a constant, silent wound. He was confiding in this unknown person, sharing his soul when he hadn't spoken more than 10 necessary words to her since the insurance adjusters left. The mounting evidence felt worse than any physical affair. He was emotionally cheating her with a stranger who understood his pain better than she did. Tonight, the tension was unbearable, thick enough to suffocate them both. Julian was in the kitchen, humming an unrecognizable, anxious tune, phone tucked securely into the back pocket of his jeans. As he bent to put a casserole, one she wouldn't touch, into the oven, his phone vibrated, and the screen illuminated briefly. A notification from a contact simply named Sparrow. "I don't think I can hold this secret much longer. She deserves to know." Elara's breath hitched, a sharp, ragged intake of air. Sparrow. The name sounded like freedom and flight, a secret liberation from their shared despair. A nickname, intimate, evocative. A new lover, hidden in plain sight. She felt the cold dread solidify in her stomach, turning the hollowness into ice. When Julian excused himself, muttering something about a quick shower to wash off the day, Elara knew this was her only chance. Her hand trembled as she picked up the phone. It was unlocked. She navigated to the messaging app, her eyes blurring over the dense stream of texts with the unknown Sparrow. The texts were frequent, spanning late nights and early mornings. They were deeply emotional, filled with regret, hope, and detailed logistics that made her frown. Julian, it has to be perfect. Every single detail, down to the angle of the north-facing windows. It needs to make her forget the smoke, Sparrow. Erase the smell of ash from her mind. Sparrow, we are moving mountains for this, Jay. It's draining the contingency funds faster than we thought, especially after the rebar upgrades. The foundation is holding steady, but we are running on fumes. Julian, I don't care about the cost, Sparrow. Mortgage, loans, favors, whatever it takes. She needs a place to build again. A sanctuary. And a space for her work, not just mine. Elara scrolled down, her heart racing not with the expected rage, but with confusion that bordered on delirium. This didn't sound like a romantic tryst. This sounded like a grand, impossible project. The conversation was too complex for a casual affair, filled with baffling technical terms, zoning variants, archived blueprints, glass dome tension load. Julian wasn't just building a house. He was recreating a lost world. She finally found the text that was supposed to break her heart, the definitive proof of his deceit. It stopped her hands dead. "Sparrow, this is the final stage. The paperwork is filed, but she has to be ready for the grand reveal. Is the ring ready? Does she suspect anything about the location change?" "Julian, she suspects everything but the wrong things. I've hurt her with my constant secrecy, not my heart. Just make sure the sun catches the opal when she sees it, Sparrow. It needs to shine for us both, as a symbol of the future we're finally claiming." Tears streamed down Elara's face, not of betrayal, but of overwhelming, agonizing relief and a painful, wrenching guilt. Sparrow wasn't a lover. Sparrow was the architect, the contractor, the partner in an impossible, secretive mission to replace what the fire had stolen. Not just the workshop, but their very sense of future. Julian hadn't been cheating. He had been building them a redemption, pouring every ounce of his grief, energy, and love into a hidden sanctuary, a desperate, silent attempt to reignite her hope. She quickly scrolled to the very bottom, seeking the final, defining truth of this colossal secret. Julian's password-protected photo album, labeled Blueprint, contained only 2 items: a close-up photo of a tiny, glittering opal ring and a highly detailed, hand-drawn blueprint sketch for a breathtaking, modern home built around an enormous, vaulted, glass-domed studio. And then she saw the latest message, the one that snapped her back to the immediate, terrifying present, sent only 10 minutes ago. "Sparrow, everything is in place, Jay. The structure is sound. The house is hers. We can close escrow tomorrow. But there is one thing you didn't account for. The contract we signed to clear the legal hurdle? It's not just a mortgage." Elara's vision blurred again, this time with true, visceral fear. The intense secrecy, the humming anxiety, the impossible speed, the immense, illogical cost. It all suddenly clicked into terrifying place. Julian hadn't just taken out a loan for a house. He had made a dangerous deal. She watched the typing indicator flash under the name Sparrow. The message arrived. "The other party is requesting a meeting. Not with me. With you. They know your secrets, Julian. Every step you took to fund this project. And they want to collect on the collateral." The shower water stopped abruptly upstairs. Elara froze, the phone still glowing in her hand, staring at the message. She had to decide in the next 3 seconds whether to hide the phone and pretend ignorance, or confront him now and risk their fragile truce shattering completely. She took a ragged breath and looked up just as Julian walked into the living room, a thin, white towel wrapped loosely around his waist, his freshly washed hair dripping. His eyes widened in alarm as he saw the phone and her tear-stained face. "Elara," he whispered, his voice cracking with the strain of 7 months of silence and deceit. "How much did you read?" The front door, which Elara had sworn was triple-locked, slowly creaked open behind him, announcing an unwelcome guest. Julian didn't wait for her answer. He lunged forward, not to grab the phone, but to pull her into his chest, clutching her tightly. "It's true, Elara. All of it. I've been building you a new life, a new studio, because I couldn't bear to see you lost anymore. I'm sorry I hid it, but I needed the insurance payout, the extra loans, everything to go unnoticed until the ribbon was cut and you smiled again." He stopped, his voice catching on a silent gasp. His eyes, fixed over her shoulder, were filled with raw, paralyzing terror. Elara turned slowly, clutching the phone against her heart. Standing in the darkened doorway was a figure who seemed to inhale all the light from the room. A woman in an impeccably tailored, charcoal suit, her expression colder than the winter air she carried in with her. She didn't look merely wealthy, she looked powerful and utterly ruthless. "Mr. Ashworth," the woman's voice was crisp, cutting through the thick silence like shattered glass. "A most dramatic entrance, even by your standards. My name is Solace. and I believe we have a debt to discuss. A significant one. Julian pushed Elara behind him, instinctively shielding her, his only layer of defense being his own body. You shouldn't be here. The terms clearly state the collateral is only due upon the completion of the project, not before. Sparrow guaranteed me time, 6 months of grace. Solace took one slow, deliberate step into the living room, her eyes never leaving Julian. Sparrow is a broker, Julian, not an insurance policy. And completion is subjective when the buyer's collateral is already in our possession. The collateral, you see, was never the money. It was your reason for the loan itself. The desperate, panicked reason you needed to rush construction in the first place. She shifted her gaze, her eyes finally landing on Elara, who was trembling, clutching the phone that contained Julian's redemption and his ruin. The truth is, Mrs. Ashworth, Solace continued, her voice softening into a cruel silkiness designed to manipulate Julian's initial insurance claim on the fire. It was denied. Categorically. They found irrefutable evidence of highly volatile, self-igniting chemicals being stored improperly near an open flame source, which voided the policy entirely. Elara looked up at Julian, the opal ring photo flashing in her mind, then the blueprints, then the terrifying text about collateral. She realized the terrible truth wasn't just that he didn't cheat, it was that he had risked criminal charges and taken a deal with someone far worse than a lover to cover up the origins of the catastrophe. Julian, Elara whispered, the question chilling her lungs and sinking her heart. What exactly did you need the money for? If the insurance was denied. Solace smiled, a flash of something cold and predatory. The money was for the build, yes. But the debt? The debt is for the document I procured, which made the insurance company and the police change their minds about the official cause. Because of this, she tapped the paper, signed by a man who needed an impossible amount of money tonight, the original fire can easily be reruled as something else entirely. The collateral, Julian, is not your assets. It's the truth behind the origin of the fire and your willingness to commit perjury to keep it quiet. She unfolded the paper just enough for Elara to see the bold, capitalized heading at the top. It was a formal, stamped document, but the words under the heading made her dizzy. Official investigation reclassification, arson. Solace tossed the paper onto the coffee table between them. Now that the new house is structurally sound, the debt is called. And the terms of the collateral were very specific. We don't want currency. We want the one thing you were protecting and hiding. The final, original, complete masterpiece that survived the fire. The statue you thought was destroyed. The one you have hidden, the one that contains the real secret of the Ashworth legacy. Julian tensed, his bare chest heaving with exertion and fear. You'll never find it. It's safe. Oh, but we already have, Solace purred, nodding toward the newly opened front door, where shadows stirred. It's being moved right now. Unless, of course, you'd rather face the authorities for burning down a building full of highly incriminating evidence, Mr. Ashworth. Julian's eyes locked onto Elara's, his face a mask of love, fear, and desperate apology. He had traded his own safety for her happiness and future. Elara, he pleaded, reaching for her hand, I did it for us. I did it because I couldn't bear the thought of losing everything. But there's still time. We have to run, right now, before they get the rest of it. Elara looked from the blueprint of her dream studio, to the opal ring he was going to give her, to the cold, dangerous woman standing in their home, and finally, to the single word on the document, arson. Her heart was torn between the man who had lied and the man who had risked everything, his freedom, his life, to save her. She didn't run. Instead, she stepped out from behind him, dropped the phone, and looked Solace straight in the eye. What is the statue's name? Elara asked, her voice steady despite the quake in her knees. What did Julian take so much risk to save? Solace's cold smile returned, wider now, predatory. You'll know it when you see it, Mrs. Ashworth, because that statue you see is the only piece of art your family ever created that is capable of bringing things back. A loud, scuffing noise announced the arrival of the statue. Two heavy-set men in black tactical gear wheeled a large, velvet-draped trolley through the doorway. When they pulled the cloth back, Elara gasped, a sound of profound loss and recognition. It wasn't a heroic figure or an ancient relic. It was a perfectly rendered bronze statue of a little girl, about 5 years old, captured mid-laugh, holding a wooden sailboat. It was their daughter, Lily. They had sculpted it together after Lily's sudden passing 2 years ago, a collaborative, agonizing act of grief that had consumed Elara's last burst of creativity, her very soul, to give her a permanent form. The bronze itself felt like a piece of their daughter. "Lily," Elara whispered, reaching a trembling hand toward the cold bronze, the name a painful, familiar prayer. "Lily's name is irrelevant," Solace corrected, her gaze sharp and dismissive. "It is the technique and the raw material. The final layer of alloy, crafted with specific, nearly extinct elements that only the Ashworth family understood how to fuse. That unique, hyperconductive process, combined with a precise temporal energy signature, allows the statue to act as a temporal anchor. It doesn't just bring things back, Mrs. Ashworth. It can reverse an isolated sequence of events, turning back the clock on one specific moment, one precise tragedy." Julian stepped forward, covering Elara's hand with his own. "It's too volatile. That's why the workshop burned, not from chemicals, but from the backlash of the first, incomplete attempt to bring her back, to fix the moment she fell. I never meant to start a fire, I just meant to fix the greatest mistake of our lives." His eyes were pleading for her understanding. "I know what you meant," Solace said smoothly. "And that, Julian, is why the collateral isn't the statue itself. It's the process, the Ashworth formula. Your organization, your entire generational legacy, has been secretly sitting on the power to restore lost history, to undo tragedy. My employers are simply calling in the debt to stabilize nations, to correct critical market failures, to truly fix the world in ways far grander than bringing back a single child." Elara looked at her husband, the man who had kept the secret of his grief and his guilt bottled up for 2 years, only to explode in a desperate, fire-starting act of love. The opal ring was forgotten, the new studio was irrelevant. All that mattered was Lily, standing silent and bronze between them, a ghost and a promise of impossible reversal. "If you know the Ashworth process, why do you need Julian?" Elara asked Solace, her voice gaining a steely edge of pure determination that Julian hadn't heard in months. "You have the formula and the anchor. Why involve him?" Solace paused, clearly surprised and slightly amused by Elara's sudden shift from grief-stricken victim to calculating adversary. "The process requires an inheritor, a direct Ashworth artisan to complete the alloy's final charge, and the Ashworth bloodline is notoriously unpredictable. Given your husband's messy enthusiasm and recklessness, we prefer the calmer, more focused hand of the Ashworth matriarch." Solace offered a pristine hand to Elara. "I believe you were the true genius of the family, Mrs. Ashworth. Join us. We can bring back anything. Anyone. You can spend your life undoing the world's mistakes." Julian shook his head frantically. "No, Elara. It's a trick. The power comes at a cost, a terrible one. Every change ripples outwards. You can't control it." Elara looked at Lily's sculpted, laughing face, and then at Julian, terrified and half-dressed, offering her his whole, flawed heart. He had risked everything, including his freedom, to give her a future. She realized the arson was not a crime in her eyes. It was the ultimate, albeit mismanaged, act of love. She stepped away from Julian, walking past Solace and positioning herself directly between the door and the statue. "You want the Ashworth legacy? You have it," Elara said, her eyes burning with a resolve that silenced Solace. "But Julian is not going anywhere. He gets the new life he built. He gets the house, the studio, and his innocence, the arson document destroyed and the debt cancelled. You take me and I'll give you the complete, stabilized formula, but only under my conditions." Solace considered her for a long moment, the intrigue warring with her impatience. "And what precisely are your conditions, Mrs. Ashworth?" Elara looked at the statue one last time, a single, final tear finally tracing a path down her cheek, landing on the phone's glass. She knew that to save Julian from the devastating arson charge, she had to sacrifice the only potential way to heal her own deepest wound. It was the hardest choice of her life. "My condition," Elara stated clearly, locking eyes with Solace, "is that this statue, Lily's statue, the temporal anchor, is never to be used again by anyone for any purpose. You leave it behind, a piece of useless, inert bronze, and you and your employers never look back at the Ashworth family." Solace smiled, a deep, triumphant thing, knowing she had secured the true prize. "Done. The collateral terms are amended. Welcome to the Foundation, Mrs. Ashworth. Let's begin your work immediately. There are market crashes scheduled for correction." She nodded to her men. "Release Mr. Ashworth and secure the area. The collateral has been paid." Julian tried to rush her, his eyes blazing with desperate protest, but the men held him back effortlessly. "Elara, no. Don't do this. You are making a terrible mistake. I can't lose you too." Elara met his panicked gaze, her expression calm, her voice gentle, a voice he hadn't heard since before the fire. "You didn't lose me, Julian. You saved me. You built me a future. Now go, start your new life in the new studio, and build us something real this time, something without secrets." She was led away, walking purposefully into the cold night with Solace, leaving Julian alone in the shattered silence of their old house, staring at the statue of Lily and the opal ring lying forgotten beside the crumpled arson document. He could run to the authorities, confess everything, but he would lose Elara for sure. He could try to retrieve the statue and use its power, but he was alone, outnumbered, and had no idea where they were taking his wife or how vast their organization was. He ran to the phone and dialed the only number he could think of, his knuckles white. "Sparrow," Julian gasped into the receiver, his voice tight with desperation and a newfound, burning resolve. The collateral was called. She took the deal. "I need the new house key, every document you have on Solace's organization, and all the incomplete notes on the temporal alloy's limitations. We're going to need to rebuild more than just a studio, Sparrow. And I need to know the true, complete cost of bringing back a life, because I'm not just coming for Elara, I'm coming to take the Foundation down." The line crackled, then a weary male voice, stripped of all the earlier text message cheer, responded. "Sparrow is not my name, Julian. It's Finn. And I'm the one who buried the documents to make your insurance claim look clean. I'm the architect of your new life, and the terrified broker who knows exactly how dangerous the organization you just dealt with truly is." Julian stumbled back, leaning against the cold wall, his wet skin sticking to the plaster. "Finn, I don't care what your name is. Elara's gone. Tell me everything. What is the true cost of the temporal alloy? Why did you lie to me about the collateral?" Finn sighed, a sound heavy with professional guilt. "I didn't lie. The collateral was the statue, until Solace decided Elara's mind was worth more. The true cost, Julian, is what we found in the archives. The Ashworth process doesn't just reverse one event. It drains the life force, the temporal energy, of the caster with every use. Your ancestor, who first forged the alloy, died young, a husk of a man. The fire, Julian, was the statue's self-preservation response. It burned your workshop, consuming everything except the alloy itself, because the power sensed you were about to drain your own life to bring Lily back." Julian looked at the bronze statue of his daughter, not as a symbol of grief, but as a silent, powerful, sentient weapon. It had tried to save him by destroying his past. "The new house," Julian demanded, his voice low and dangerous, pulling the opal ring from the table and stuffing it into the pocket of his damp towel. "Tell me about the new house. Is it safe?" "It's a fortress," Finn confirmed. "The glass dome isn't just for light, it's a Faraday cage. The ground floor is reinforced concrete and steel. We included a panic room, wired to an independent satellite uplink. I built it to be a refuge for Elara, an artistic sanctuary, but now, it's your new base of operations. The key is under the loose brick in the old garden wall, the one Lily used to hide her treasures behind. Go there now. Burn this old place to the ground if you have to, Julian. They won't stop until they have every piece of the Ashworth legacy." Julian looked around the aging house, the house that contained the happiest moments of their marriage and the deepest pain of their loss. He couldn't burn it. He was done with fire. He was done with secrets. I'm coming for her, Finn. And when I find Elara, I'm bringing her home. Tell me what the foundation is, and where they keep their assets. Julian found a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, dressing quickly, transforming from the grieving husband to the determined operative. The foundation, Finn whispered, the name echoing with reverence and fear, is less an organization and more a global utility. They don't deal in money, they deal in potential. They are based out of a non-existent corporate tower in Zurich, but Solace operates the retrieval cell from an island off the coast of Maine, Ethelgard. You'll need a boat, a new identity, and a plan that doesn't involve burning down their headquarters. They have countermeasures for everything. Julian tucked the opal ring into his chest pocket, the memory of Elara's sacrifice hardening his resolve. He looked back at Lily's statue, gave it a silent, final farewell, and walked toward the door. He didn't need a boat. He needed something far more subtle. I was an artist before I was an arsonist, Finn, Julian corrected, his voice sounding entirely new, cold and focused. My plan involves disappearing entirely. The opal ring will stay behind. They need to believe the Ashworth legacy is still here, broken and buried. Now, tell me about the sewage system underneath their Zurich tower. Every fortress has a weak point, and every weakness leaves a stain. He walked out the front door, leaving the house unlocked, the statue of Lily bathed in the eerie light of the moon, a monument to the love that had cost him everything. He wasn't running to his new house. He was infiltrating a global conspiracy. The man who had been smiling at his phone was gone. In his place stood a broken artist who had just been given the tools of a spy, ready to use the secrets of architecture and alloy to steal back his wife. Julian drove the old, dented pickup truck, the one Elara never used, to the new location Finn had painstakingly described. He found the key beneath the loose, weathered brick in the old garden wall, exactly where Finn said it would be. The new house was stark, modernist, and completely unlike their cozy, century-old home, standing aggressively against the quiet suburban night. It was an architectural statement of resilience. Once inside, the sanctuary Finn promised was evident. The interior was minimalist, built around the central, cavernous studio with the towering glass dome. The sheer amount of steel and concrete made the house feel less like a home and more like a hardened bunker. Julian located the panic room immediately, a seamless, unmarked section of the wall near the master bedroom. Inside, Finn had not been subtle. The room was stocked with essentials, dehydrated rations, encrypted communication gear, and a small, heavy-duty laptop humming with activity. Attached to the screen was a note. Julian, open the Ashworth archive file. Passcode is Lily's birthday. Study the cost. Call me when you land in the house's safe zone. Julian typed in the date of Lily's birth, his fingers moving stiffly over the keys. The screen populated with dense, archived files, not about art, but about temporal physics and material science. He saw handwritten notes, sketches of ancient furnaces, and detailed metallurgical compositions. He scrolled to the section titled, The Reckoning, Temporal Feedback and Lifespan. The archive revealed that the Ashworth family curse was not one of madness, but of sacrifice. His great-grandfather hadn't just died young. He had reversed the collapse of the family bank, costing him 20 years of his life. The alloy didn't require energy, it required life. The process was instantaneous, the resulting drain subtle, slow, and irreversible, a quiet temporal cancer. The fire at the workshop had been the statue's ultimate warning, its programmed attempt to halt Julian's sacrifice. He now knew, with sickening clarity, that if Elara used the stabilized formula, she would be signing a death warrant, traded away piece by piece to correct corporate balance sheets and fix stock market fluctuations. He closed the laptop, the sheer weight of the Foundation's ambition pressing down on him. They didn't want to bring back people, they wanted to bring back profit. And Elara, the true master artisan, was the key to stabilizing the formula for repeated, low-cost use. Julian picked up the secured satellite phone and called Finn. I'm in, he said, his voice flat. The true cost is life. You should have told me. I tried, Julian. You were too far gone. I only got involved because I saw a grieving man about to immolate himself for a ghost. The fire terrified me. It proved the alloy works, and it proved you were reckless enough to use it. I had to choose the lesser of two evils: hide the arson and finance a sanctuary, or watch you die trying to rewind time. Finn's voice softened. Now, Elara has bought you time and freedom. Don't waste it. I've booked you a seat on a private jet leaving for Zurich in 3 hours. Identity: Elias Thorne, consulting structural engineer. Your specialty is architecture. Use it. Julian walked to the largest window, looking out at the modern, quiet, anonymous street. He was no longer Julian Ashworth, the struggling artist haunted by a loss. He was Elias Thorne, a ghost already, preparing to infiltrate the enemy's walls. Zurich first, then Ethelgard, Julian confirmed. But I need one more thing, Finn. The sewage blueprints for that non-existent tower. If they deal in potential, they'll have underground vaults to store their failures, the things they successfully erased, or the people who threaten them. I need to know where the filth collects, because that's where the secrets hide. Finn chuckled, a dry, nervous sound. A poet-architect turned sewer diver. I'll have the full schematic encrypted and waiting in your laptop by the time you reach the airfield, complete with thermal imaging overlays. Good luck, Fleiss. Remember, you're looking for the structural weaknesses of a global power, not a leaky pipe. Julian hung up. He stripped off his damp clothes, pulled on a fresh, dark pair of jeans and a nondescript jacket from the panic room supplies. He ran a hand over the cool, flawless concrete of the studio wall. This was the place Elara should have been safe, painting beneath the vaulted glass. Now it was just the launch pad for a solo war. He opened the Ashworth archive one last time, not for the notes on the alloy, but for the sketches of the ancient furnaces. He was going to use his family's dark legacy against its new owners. He had to learn how to manipulate the temporal alloy's energy signature without using the alloy itself. His revenge would be purely structural, architecturally precise, and impossibly destructive. Julian Thorne stepped out of the new house, merging with the shadows of the morning. He locked the fortress, leaving the statue of Lily, the unused, inert bronze monument, behind in the old house, the perfect decoy. He was no longer trying to bring back the past. He was focused entirely on securing their future. Julian Thorne, now Elias Thorne, landed in Zurich under a cloudless sky that felt offensively cheerful. He was wearing a suit that didn't quite fit, carrying a briefcase containing a laptop, a satellite uplink, and the profound, crushing weight of his wife's sacrifice. The Foundation's headquarters was, as Finn had warned, non-existent. It was a phantom, an architectural mirage. Julian's taxi dropped him at a gleaming, ultramodern skyscraper that housed a reputable international bank and several consulting firms. The Foundation's name was nowhere on the directory, yet Finn's schematics indicated its primary operational cell was situated 300 meters beneath the building's deepest sublevel. Julian checked into a boutique hotel across the street, ensuring his room had an unobstructed, if high-angle, view of the target building's immediate surroundings. Before even unpacking, he began his reconnaissance, using the high-powered lens provided by Finn. He wasn't looking at the sleek, reflective glass of the tower. He was looking for anomalies in the ground itself. Finn's files had been comprehensive. The Zurich Tower, officially the Lumina Center, was an architectural marvel, but its foundation was built over a critical, protected geological fault line. To stabilize the building, an unprecedented sub-level infrastructure had been constructed, a massive, inverted pyramid of reinforced concrete, designed to absorb and distribute seismic energy. It was this buried geometry that Julian needed to exploit. He spread Finn's digital blueprints on his laptop screen, the glowing lines of the sewer system running beneath the tower like a chaotic, metallic circulatory system. Every fortress has a drain, Julian murmured to himself, channeling the focused precision he used to apply to a chisel or a brush. He traced the main outflow pipes. The Foundation, in its arrogance, had engineered a proprietary system that bypassed the municipal sewers for security, dumping their effluent, digital and physical, into a deep, abandoned 19th-century tunnel that ran directly beneath the Lumina Center's main foundation. This tunnel was the weak point. Julian's mission was twofold: access the tunnel and use it as a silent infiltration route. Discover where the Foundation was storing its temporal failures, the assets they had acquired or erased using the Ashworth formula. He spent the next 24 hours mapping the surrounding cityscape, not for tourist spots, but for utility access points, manholes, and maintenance shafts. He quickly located the nearest junction box, a massive, rusted steel plate disguised as a decorative sidewalk slab 2 blocks away. Just as he finished the external analysis, Finn's contact chime went off. "Finn, Elias, stop looking at the pipes. Salis has moved. Intelligence confirms she is already setting up Elara on Ethelgard. They're running a live experiment today, a small market correction, using Elara's refined technique. You have 3 hours until the window closes. You need to get eyes on the Zurich operation now." Julian felt a fresh wave of panic, quickly suppressed by a cold, surgical focus. Elara was already working, already sacrificing herself, minute by minute, for their corporate greed. He stripped down, pulling on the dark, flexible uniform Finn had included, a full-body hazmat suit painted matte black, designed to be unseen in subterranean darkness. He packed the absolute essentials: high-intensity headlamp, rappelling gear, and a small, electronic disruptor disguised as a simple utility meter. He exited the hotel via the fire escape, moving silently through the back alleys until he reached the heavy steel slab. It was locked with a complicated, proprietary mechanism. Julian, the self-taught master craftsman, didn't need to pick the lock. He knew architecture. The heavy slab was fastened by a core anchor bolt buried in the concrete beneath. Julian used a specialized sonic pulse emitter to vibrate the bolt at its resonant frequency. With a low, metallic groan, the heavy slab unlocked. Julian lowered himself into the deep, echoing darkness. The air was damp and smelled of decay and ozone, the latter a sign of the Foundation's high-energy activity leaking from above. He found the abandoned tunnel, which was wider than he expected, the masonry crumbling and old. He was alone, deep beneath the center of the world's financial architecture. He navigated the tunnel for 45 minutes, following the schematics on his wrist-mounted tablet, until he reached the point where the Foundation's private outflow pipes merged with the old tunnel. The pipes were made of a high-density ceramic composite, impervious to his disruptor. He couldn't go up. He had to go further down. According to Finn's diagrams, the tunnel bottomed out in a natural cavern that the Foundation was using for sub-level 7, the vault storage for their temporal failures. This was the filth Julian had been looking for. He found a small, narrow fissure in the tunnel floor, a natural fault line that Finn had flagged. It was just wide enough for a careful descent. Julian dropped his line and began to rappel down, deeper into the earth, until the sound of running water was replaced by a low, consistent hum, the sound of massive, contained energy. He landed on a small, slippery ledge, the air here colder and sterile. Below him, the cavern opened up into a hidden, brightly lit underground facility. It was a massive circular vault, its walls lined with reinforced titanium. This wasn't a sewage collection point, it was a museum of mistakes. The walls were lined with large, cryovaults, each labeled with a terse, professional designation. V004 NSFT, correction of 2018 market fluctuation. Asset, erased. V012 Pule, correction of 1989 border conflict. Asset, erased general, temporal feedback high. V021 ASH, Ashworth process prototype failure. Asset, undefined temporal echo, high danger. Julian realized what the collateral truly was. Not just a truth, but a human life. They didn't just erase financial failures. They erased the people who caused them, storing their temporal echoes, their frozen, isolated existence, in these vaults. And V021 was the terrifying proof of his family's destructive power, the result of his own panicked attempt to bring Lily back. Julian moved silently along the narrow catwalk, making his way toward the massive, central support pillar that stabilized the entire subterranean complex. Finn's plans had highlighted this pillar as the primary structural weak point. If he could compromise this single point, the sheer weight of the 300 meters of concrete above would collapse the facility, erasing the foundation's secrets forever. He reached the pillar and activated his electronic disruptor, setting it to emit a high-frequency, targeted sonic wave designed to scramble internal sensors. The security lights flickered, giving